Good morning. This is John Callis, President and CEO of Castle Breckenridge Management. Welcome to our monthly podcast and Facebook Live show. Today, we're honored to have a special guest, Bradley Schuber from the Kriger firm, and he's going to talk on restrictions on solar energy systems and common interest developments. Let's give a big hand to Brad. Brad, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you for the nice, warm reception. I really appreciate it. Today's topic is restrictions on solar energy systems and common interest developments. There is a handout here. I see that we have it passed out to everyone. And I'll just, as we go through the presentation, make sure I prompt you about what pages we're looking at. As all of you know, we've really seen a big push for solar power here in California and across the world. And one question is, why? And of course, the obvious answer is that we have, what appears to be infinite, limitless power radiating from the sun. And if we could take advantage of that, we could heat homes and swimming pools and water heaters and cars and all the rest of it. And it looks like we're on that way. So we have a nice image here on that in your packets. Going back a little bit, we have a quote from Thomas Edison on solar energy. And I'll read it out loud for everyone who's on Facebook Live. But back in 1931, Thomas Edison said, "We are like tenant farmers chopping down the fence around our houses for fuel, when we should be using nature's inexhaustible sources of energy, sun, wind, and tide. I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that." Since 1931, we've made some big strides here in the United States and around the world. In 2015, Germany produced a world record of 22 gigawatts of electricity per hour, and that's roughly the equivalent of 20 nuclear power stations. So that's fairly significant. I don't know how many nuclear power plants we have here in the United States, but I want to say we have 50 or 60 and helping to generate all of our electricity. So this is really a very notable benchmark. If we look at solar power around the world, these statistics that I'm going to give you are from Wikipedia, and they're at the conclusion of 2015. At the conclusion of 2015, the world total energy consumption was 18.4 terawatts, and the world total PV capacity, and that's photovoltaic capacity, was 256,000 megawatts. So solar energy comprises still just a small amount of the world's total energy consumption, but it's getting up there. And then, of course, you'll see that I've listed the top 10 countries. China's number 1, Germany's number 2, Japan number 3, United States number 4, Italy, United Kingdom, and so forth. Nice quote here from Bill Gates, too, in your package. So what is California's position on solar? Well, California has a pretty strong policy commitment. According to the legislature, and I'll quote, "The purpose of the act is to promote and encourage the widespread use of solar energy systems and to protect and facilitate adequate access to the sunlight which is necessary to operate solar energy systems." In short, we have a strong policy commitment here in California, and they adopted something called the Solar Rights Act in 1978. And that's what we're really going to focus on today. If we go to the next page, there's an image of a solar energy farm, a bunch of solar panels. They're laid out on the ground, and this is actually taken in San Bernardino, so this is close by. On July 12th, 2016, California generated 8 gigawatts of power from these type of stations, and another 4 gigawatts behind the meter, meaning private homes and so forth. And it just flipping back a couple pages, it's worthwhile to note that if we look at the 6th largest production, which was the United Kingdom, they're at, says 8,000 megawatts, which is really 8 gigawatts. So California, in and of itself, has produced more than the United Kingdom and those other countries that follow. So we are making a significant contribution to solar energy and leading the country in that regard. In 2016, we had in California 230,000 homes with solar panels on them, helping contribute, and some of those are in common interest developments, as it turns out. So California has this large desire to take advantage of solar energy, but of course, common interest developments. We want people to have solar panels in the communities, but we also have some concerns. We can't just throw up a solar panel anywhere that we want to. We have to have some reasonable restrictions. And so the Solar Rights Act, there was a lot of debate in how that language should look. And the Solar Act's right it's actually located in several code sections. As you'll see on this slide, it's in primarily what we're going to focus on is section 714 and 714.1. That's where most of the common interest development HOA language is found about restrictions. But it's worthwhile to note that it's in other civil code sections, 801, 801.5. It's in the government code section at 6550.5, and a couple other ones, health and safety code. I won't go into all of them, but just know that the Solar Rights Act is when it was adopted, it went into a lot of different codes within California. And for today, we're going to focus on 714 and 714.1. So, diving right in on 714A, you'll see that I've printed out the statute and I've underlined some words, and so I'm just going to read the reduced words. And in short, it says any covenant, restriction, or condition contained in any provision of a governing document that effectively restricts the installation or use of a solar energy system is void and unenforceable. All right, that is some strong language. And if we didn't have 714B and all the rest of it, if we just stopped there, we'd be done. Okay, there'd be solar panels everywhere in common interest developments. So let's move to 714B. All right, this is where homeowner associations, common interest developments get some relief from that real broad language. And generally it says that this section does not apply to provisions that impose reasonable restrictions on solar energy systems. Reasonable restrictions on solar energy systems are those restrictions that do not significantly increase the cost of the system or significantly decrease its efficiency or specified performance, or that allow for an alternate system of comparable cost, efficiency, and energy conservation benefits. Okay? We'll turn to the next page. So that's some lofty language. We need to break that down a little bit, try to understand what all that means. The legislature will put forth some good-looking language. They'll use words like significantly, and we have to try to understand what that means. Sometimes they'll give some specifics. In this case, they do. Other times they don't. We have to try to determine what reasonableness is, and that's sort of left up to factual situations in the court systems to try to define. So this next slide, what is a reasonable restriction? We've got several bullet points, and generally all these bullet points are a potential basis for what might be a reasonable restriction within a common interest development. The first thing is that the statute speaks about solar energy systems, so we have to make sure that what we're talking about is actually a solar energy system, because if it's not, then the Solar Rights Act's not implicated. There's some additional criteria found in 714.1. We'll get into what those additional criteria are. There's cost and performance factors. There are alternative comparable systems. There's common area installation. What if somebody wants to install a solar panel in a common area? There's maintenance and repair, indemnification and reimbursement restrictions, whether or not building permits are required, and prior approval. What sort of prior approval as a form of a restriction can you have? All right. So these bullet points, we're going to sort of break these down one at a time, try to understand. So a solar energy system, it's actually defined in section 801.5A of the Civil Code. And generally, it's a device or structural design feature of a building whose primary purpose is to provide for the collection, storage, and distribution of solar energy for space heating, space cooling, electric generation, or water heating. Okay? And some traditional examples are the photovoltaic solar panels that you see up on top of the roofs that collect energy from the sun. There's solar water heating for use within a building. That's another type of energy system. Solar water heating for space heating purposes, and solar pool heating. All right, we have a lot of people who want to heat their pool with solar energy. All right, so actually just pausing on that. So there's a funny picture over here, and there's a guy saying, staring to the solar panel on my calculator because your eyes are radiating sunlight. Okay, and it's just sort of a reminder that not everything is not everything is a solar energy system. A person's not a solar energy system. If we have a homeowner who's like, I'd like to build a patio cover in the backyard because it's going to provide shade, and I know it's going into a setback area and it's right on the property line, and my neighbor doesn't want it, but I'd really like to do it, and it's a solar energy system, so you can't restrict me. Well, the answer is, well, patio cover is nice. It's a structural component, but it's not a solar energy system. Technically, we have to think about what is a solar energy system. So that's an example. Now, there are some additional criteria to what a solar energy system would require. And when we get into section 714C1, it talks about health and safety. And so even if it is a solar energy system, if it's not safe for some reason, then it's not protected by the statute. There's solar water heating certification as a requirement. Okay, and so if you are doing solar water heating, the whole system has to be certified. And if a homeowner is saying, hey, I want to install this solar water heating system, and it doesn't come with a certification, then that's a reasonable reason to stop and say, hey, that's not protected. You can't install that here. We've got a reason why we should restrict the installation of this particular item. And then, of course, solar electric standards. I mean, we are dealing with electricity. Under Section 714C3, they talk about the need to make sure that the system performs to the standards established by the California Electrical Code and some other accrediting testing laboratories. And so when we're dealing with these types of systems, we can always look to see if it's meeting certain electrical standards, okay, and whether or not an owner who submits an application to install a solar energy system should be approved or denied. We can look to see if they're following those standards. And sometimes we need some help with that. We might need to consult a solar energy professional. So there are some additional criteria. Now, the big one that I think is most commonly known is cost and performance. And so CC&Rs may impose requirements that do not significantly increase the cost of the system or decrease its efficiency. The California legislature has helped us out with the term significantly. And so generally what they're saying is that if a homeowner comes to an association and wants to install a system and has a design for it, and we review it, if we look at it and we think that it could be installed a little bit differently and the cost does not exceed $1,000, then it's reasonable to deny that application. However, if what the association would like to do is going to exceed $1,000, then it's not. So there's a $1,000 benchmark line item. The other component is the efficiency, and so a decrease in system efficiency of an amount exceeding 10% as originally specified would not be acceptable. So we have $1,000 or 10%. And I just note in passing that there was a change in 2014 in the statute. It used to be $2,000, 20%. It was amended in 2014 to be $1,000 and 10%. The statute, the next page, the statute talks about alternative comparable systems. And if there's an alternative way to do it, then the statute says that the HOA can recommend that. There's been some case law on that. And we had a situation where a homeowner wanted to install a solar panel on a slope. They can actually build them on slopes instead of putting them up on roofs. And the court held that the homeowner wanted to put it there. The HOA says, no, we don't want to put it there. It doesn't look good over there. And we actually think that you might be able to put it some other places, maybe in your backyard, maybe up on your roof. They analyzed that the cost wouldn't be that much different. And homeowner says, no, I've already put them up on the slope. Forget you guys. The HOA sued. The court said, homeowner, you got to take those down. There was an alternate comparable location on the property where you could have put them. So, moving over to common area installations. I want to say the common area installations, that is where homeowner associations are strongest. Separate interest, we have less say, exclusive use common area, it's a little bit more of a gray area, and then on common area installations, we have the strongest say. And so that's built into the statute. 714.1a says that associations can restrict the installation of solar energy systems in common areas. Maintenance and repair. Associations can create reasonable provisions regarding maintenance and repair of roofs or other building components that might be affected by solar energy installation. So we say, well, yeah, you can put your solar panels, over here on your roof or what have you. But if there's leaks, if there's some other negative consequence, then you're going to be responsible. You're going to be responsible for that. All right. So maintenance and repair is a legitimate restriction, and homeowner associations can require owners to take care of the repercussions of those installations. Indemnification and reimbursement is a great one. The HOA can require the installers to indemnify and reimburse the association for loss or damage caused by installation, maintenance, or use of the solar energy system. That's located at section 714.1d. Building permits is the next topic. In your handout here, you'll see that I've pulled, City of San Diego has technical bulletins, and this is Technical Bulletin 301. And generally know that solar panel, solar energy systems require permits. And at a minimum, it's going to require an electrical permit. And if there's modification to a structure, it could require a building permit or a combination building permit, depending on what the structure is. So there's some the technical bulletins. You can load look at them right off the website, and I'm happy to forward one to if anybody's interested in looking at that. And so when an association gets an application, the building permit is part of that process, and so it's reasonable for a homeowner association to say, hey, did you get some permit? Are you getting permits here? That's a reasonable restriction. And then prior approval as a reasonable restriction. The statute says that associations can require prior approval. So if a homeowner just throws up some solar panels, the association could say, hold on, you're supposed to get some prior approval here. But there are some restrictions on prior approval, all right? And in short, what everyone should know is that the approval process has to be fair. The approval process needs to result in either an approval or denial of the application, and that has to be in writing. And that needs to occur within a 45-day window. And if you don't respond within 45 days, then it's deemed approved. Okay, so there's a short window. If the association needs more information, then the association can request. If you're coming up on day 45, you can request additional information. The application's incomplete. We need a little bit more information from you. Okay, so that's reasonable as well. If an association runs afoul of the approval process or falls down somewhere along the line, Section 714 does provide for some penalties, and the penalties are a civil penalty of up to not to exceed $1,000. Okay, actual damages, whatever the actual damages might be. And there is a attorney's fee prevailing party provision within Section 714. So if you get into a dispute with the homeowner, all of that is at risk. There's civil penalty, there's actual damages, and there's attorney's fees that we have to be concerned about. Within the materials, I've included some sample CC&R provisions that we use when we do document revision rewrites. We usually put a paragraph within a section called use restrictions, and then we put another section specifically in architectural approval. So we make it real clear to owners of communities that, hey, if you want to install solar panels, we have a provision that's within the governing documents which are recorded in public record. So, in summary, solar energy systems are on the rise in California and are going to be for the foreseeable future. California has a strong policy commitment towards it, and the Act generally says that we can have some reasonable restrictions, and we just have to be real careful that we follow those. If you have questions about what is reasonable or technical concerns, then associations should seek out professional help from counsel or from industry professionals, solar energy industry professionals. Okay, that's it.
How about some questions? Yes, Susan.
Okay, I have questions about the process of submitting your request for architectural improvement to the board, to the HOA.
Okay.
A lot of people getting solar think that it's if they hand it off to their installation company, then it relieves them of the process. So the installer now is responsible for turning in their application.
Yes.
And 90% of the time, the installer is not going to do that.
That's right. So, generally, can a homeowner who has a responsibility on the CC&Rs, can he delegate that responsibility to the solar energy installing company professional? They can, but ultimately the homeowner is responsible for complying with the governing documents. When they purchased the home, they took at least constructive knowledge of what's recorded in the public record, and it is ultimately their responsibility to make sure that the application is complete and to the homeowners, to the homeowner association's requirements, and if it's not, then it's the homeowner. It's the homeowner's fault ultimately.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Harold.
Have you dealt with utility easements? I have an association that has a utility easement that was granted to the association, even though it's on the homeowner's lot. Okay. So the association was approving things, and then the utility company, in this case Helix, came back and said, you don't have that right. So has the law dealt with that at all? How would you deal with that?
All right, so we're talking about a solar easement?
Yeah, a utility easement. The land where the solar system was going carries a utility easement that was granted to the association, even though it's on the homeowner's land.
Okay, and so we are in that scenario. Okay, so we have solar collectors of some kind, and then we're going underneath the ground on a utility easement, and then we're popping up at the association And so we're running across a homeowner's land. Is that right?
No.
No.
This
okay,
is a
don't-
PUD.
Okay, PUD. Got it.
The in this case, the water district has a pipeline that runs through. When the association was built, they granted easements to each of on each of the lands, even though they're owned by the homeowner, to the association, not to
Okay.
the individual homeowners.
Okay. So the HOA can go on the easements if it needs to. That energy can be delivered across there. And so we have a homeowner who's saying, stay off my land.
The water district is saying you need to get approval from us before you grant the homeowner the ability to build anything in our easement.
Oh yeah. Well, if there is a pre-existing easement, then yeah, you generally can't build within an easement.
Okay.
Brad, is there any thing that would preclude a homeowners association to install a common solar heating system for the use of all the individual owners?
Oh yeah. So let's say the HOA wanted to install a lot of solar power, have a chunk of land or space to put it. What you have to be careful there of is the governing documents usually have some restrictions. They have restrictions about entering into contracts that are more than 1 year. There's restrictions about capital investments. We're doing capital improvement here, and so you'd have to check the governing documents, John, and see what requirements. It may require a vote of the membership.
Okay. Very good. One more question, Deborah.
On your cost and performance page,
Yeah.
it says that or to decrease in system efficiency of an amount exceeding 10% as originally specified and proposed. But on the next page, alternative comparable systems, it said that the court held, third paragraph down,
Yes.
so on and so forth, with only a 14% reduction. Well, 14 is more than 10, so how did that happen?
It is. It's a great question. So the answer is that the law changed, and the law changed in 2014. So in 2011, when that case was heard, the requirement was $2,000 or 20%. And in 2014, the statute was amended. It constricted it just a little bit to 1,000 or 10%. And so when you look at that second page and it's talking about 14%, that was at a moment in time when the statute was at 20%.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, of course.
All right, let's thank Brad Schuber for speaking today. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.